So on our 2000 Acura 3.2 TL, the last two times I stopped at parking lot speed, I heard a strange sound coming from the back. I believe it's the brakes, and they haven't been done for a long time, so it's time to check them out. I think the pads are worn out. The wear indicators didn't make any noise. That was suspicious. So it sounded like a kind of a grindy noise, just stopping at like 2 miles an hour. So I have 176,800 miles since the last time I changed the pads and rotors on the back of the car. So I have the car jacked up. I'll show you the jack point here. So in the back, that's the jack point right there. And then I have right there at the jack stand point. I've taken off the wheel. There's 5 lugs. I have chocked the front wheels. This is if the car won't move. And so 19 millimeter to take off the lug nuts. And let's get the pads off. Okay, so the tools we're going to need for this part. You might need a 17 to hold this, especially when tightening, putting it back on, so we'll get that ready. You're going to need a 13 socket, 13 millimeter for here and for here. And you're going to need, of course, your ratchet. And then there's a brake line you have to loosen, so you're going to need an extension. I'm using a 6-inch extension. And let me show you where that's at so you can access it. Okay, right here. Right there to loosen that brake line, because this rubber hose needs to be long enough to get the caliper away from the rotor. Small bolt there holding the brake line. There we go. Just going to remove these 2 bolts. Piece of coat hanger. You're going to curve one end to put it up on the strut coil, and another end will just stick through here. Hopefully that'll reach. Maybe I'll go up the other. There we go. So let's get our brake off, and you can see where that bolt was holding it. That's why we undid that. Now I'm just going to put this here and hang it. There we go. So we're hanging that. That's out of the way. And now we have our brake pads. The outer pad doesn't look too worn. The inner pad has the wear indicator. There we go. And we are right down to the wear indicator. I don't want to get too close to the camera. It'll be blurry, but you see that's where the indicator is right there. It's just even with the brake material. It's pretty thin, so we need pads. This is your inner pad, goes this way. This is your outer pad with no wear indicator. And our caliper boot. Oh boy, that doesn't look too healthy. It's come off of there. It's not sealed anymore. I'm gonna have to clean that up, reseat that. Let's go to the other side, do the same. At the other side, you can see my rubber dust cap is still there. On this side, hang the caliper up, and here's our pads. And it looks like our This is our inner pad. Our wear indicator's gone, and we have no brake liner left. It is worn completely off, metal to metal right there. And the outer pad's not too awful worn, but time to replace these. These have a lifetime warranty. They're AutoZone Duralast Gold ceramic. So they're going back to the store to get new ones, along with a new rotor. Okay, we got to get this caliper bracket off, and we need a 14mm socket. I'm going to need a little breaker for that. Okay, there's 2 bolts, both 14mm. There's the top one. This bottom one, both the same. Caliper bracket is off. We're going to replace this hardware, and we're going to remove these pins, clean them and lube them. Just generally clean the whole thing. Now we can work on getting the rotor off, and of course it's Honda, so it has 2 set screws that are always a pain to get out. We put never seize on these, anti-seize compound, but got my biggest number 3 Phillips. Look at that, look at that. See, a little never seize always helps. There we go, look at that. I always put that on when I put new rotors, because these are a pain if they rust in there. I have to hit this a few times with a hammer probably to get it loose. These rotors are going in the trash anyway, so I don't care. Okay, there we go. Coming off. There we go. So it's not really damaged, a little bit from that spot on the pad that was worn off, but this is your parking brake. That's all the inner part does, parking brake only. So we got new ones. Rubber dust cap. I think we've got to save this rubber dust cap right here. Got our new part here, Duralast Gold brake rotor. These are coated so that the hat won't get all rusted like the old one. I mean, eventually it will, but some of the cheaper ones, you can see this, it's all coated everywhere, even the braking surface. If you live in a rust belt area, it's good. Okay. 2 rear rotors cost me, for this exact one, 2 of these are identical left and right, $106 out the door, and the pads were free because they're lifetime guarantee. Otherwise they'd be like $54 or something. We got our AutoZone brake cleaner, got a couple cans of this, and I got my tray for cleaning dirty parts. Okay, take the little adjuster rubber cap from the old rotor hat and move it over to the new one. You'll see at the bottom of the brake there's this adjusting star. See right here? So that hole in the hat, you can stick a screwdriver through and move this adjusting star to adjust your parking brakes tighter or looser. You want them tight, but not so tight that they drag when you're driving the car. Okay. Our Duralast Gold ceramic brake pads from AutoZone DG536, and you get a pair for the left side, a pair for the right side, and some hardware for the caliper bracket. A lot of times I just take these off. These are supposed to make it quieter, but I've had these things come off and get cockeyed and start digging into the hat on the brake caliper, so I'm probably going to peel these things off. I don't find that they make it any quieter. I find that they cause more problems than they're worth. Screwdriver, pop those little guys off because I just don't like those things. I prefer to put them on just like this. Okay, we took off these two pieces of hardware, take off the rubber boot, slide the pins out. We're going to clean those. Take the rubber boot out carefully because they're old and brittle. These slide pins have to be able to slide freely for your brakes to work. Okay, let's clean this off. So, brake clean. Pins, I see one has a flat side on it. Let's see. Yeah, two flat sides. And the other one has no flat sides. This is the bottom pin, this is the top pin. They seem to fit either way, but I'm going to put them back the way they were. I'm not sure why that design is there, but if you put them in here, they fit either way. Top or bottom, they fit the same. They both move freely. Doesn't seem to make any difference, but we'll put the one with the flat side we'll put on the bottom, just to be consistent. How it was when we found it. Take this out. I'm going to clean and reuse this because this does not come with the brake pad kit. So, got to clean and reuse it. Maybe they only give it to you if you buy the whole caliper assembly. The turkey baster, I'm going to suck some brake fluid out, put it in this cup and recycle it just like motor oil. I need to drain that down a little bit so I can compress the caliper so that this doesn't overflow when I'm compressing the caliper. Okay, there's lots of ways to compress this. I'm going to do it the cheap way with this pipe wrench. I'm going to pad the jaw on this side so I don't put any marks, any tool marks on there. And I'm just going to slowly compress it in. And I'm keeping an eye on the reservoir every little bit. Squeeze that just about all the way flush. Maybe a little more than that. But you don't want to scratch this surface here. This will go against our brake pad. We'll clean that all up. I'll spray in there, get it all clean, get all the brake dust off. Let's see if I can squeeze it just a wee bit more flush. Because these new pads, of course, are thicker than the old pads. You can buy a fancy brake compressor, piston compressor, which I do have for my multi-caliper brakes. This is a single caliper, pretty straightforward. That's as flush as it's going to go. So we'll clean it up, then we'll put this spring back in up here. We'll go check the reservoir here, see how we're doing. I don't think I had to drain any. I think I was okay. A little bit high. Nope, we're right up to the max line. So I might have to drain some before I do the other brake caliper. You can see if I point down here where it says max, right there, max. Just under the lip of this. So, okay, this is what you need for things like the slide pins and any contact points, like where it contacts this and where it contacts here, where it contacts on the piston. So wherever you have a contact spot, let's line up our new brake rotor. Here we go. There we go. And we have our little cap. First I'm going to check, get this out of the way a little bit. Put this up as high as I can. Actually, I'm just going to set it down here for now. There we go. I want to make sure this turns without dragging too much on the parking brake. See if we need to adjust our parking brake or not. It's not dragging, that's good. Now I'm going to put the parking brake on and see if it locks. Yeah, it's locked. Okay, so we don't need to do an adjustment there. Let me release that brake. Okay. You want to keep this free of grease because that's your braking surface. Let's put our little rubber plug in that adjustment hole. Took this off our old brake rotor. There we go. Now we need our 2 set screws. We'll put little anti-seize. Paper towel because you don't want to get this on your clothes or on your steering wheel because it gets everywhere. And you have silver crap all over your car. Oh, come on, am I even lined up with the hole? I don't think we're lined up with the hole. Gonna have to make a move here. Try a different position. I see a threaded hole there. Try this. There we go. Now we're lined up. Not going to tighten that yet till I get the other one. You're going to thank yourself later for putting anti-seize on these 2 little screws because they can certainly be a pain to get out and they're hard to get replacements. Put them in as tight as you want because they got anti-seize, they will come back out. Okay. Wipe any excess off. We don't want that to end up on our braking surface. Okay, now we get our caliper mounting bracket. We got to put on our hardware first in these two spots. Okay, when you're putting this hardware in, take a little screwdriver, give a little press on these two little ears so that this thing sits flush and those things are in there. Hopefully you can see that. So now that we've got our hardware on there, this can go back in place. We're not going to lube it yet till we get ready to put the pads on. Okay, take our 14 millimeter and tighten the two caliper bracket bolts. Time to lubricate the slide pins. It's 101 degrees in my garage today, so I am sweating like anything trying to get this job done. Okay. Get this nice and smooth. Get our rubber boot back on there. That front edge in. There we go. This is my top pin because the other one has the flat edges, so I'm going to put this in my top pin here. Top hole. There we go. Get the air out of the boot. There we go. And that slides nice. No binding there. You can see the pin can move freely in and out the way it's supposed to for braking. Okay, if you got a frozen pin, your brakes are going to drag or they're not going to go on at all. So, same with the bottom pin. Get it all nice and lubed up. Put our rubber boot on, get the end of it in there where it belongs. Don't know if you can see that. Let me move the camera over. So bottom pin, spread this silicone lubricant around here. Moves nice and freely there. Moves in and out freely, you see that? That's what you want. Okay, need a little more lubricant where the brake pads are going to come in contact here with the hardware. So put some on here, same 4 spots here, and lubricate up here on the piston contact surface and on the top of these 2 spring edges here. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm lubricating the top edges here. I need to lubricate here and here because that's where our brake pad will come in contact. These ears touch the hardware, so we make sure the ears are lubricated but nothing on the braking surface. That's the important thing. So this is the outer brake. Let's see. Let's see. There we go. It's in there. And so you could see the way this would function is it could slide in and out towards the rotor and away from the rotor without binding. Okay, that's the purpose of that lube. Now the inner one has the wear indicator. You see how much thicker the braking material is than my worn out ones. They were down to the wear indicator. These are a lot thicker. That's why we had to compress that piston. This has to go this way, following the curvature of the wheel. There we go. There we go. So this can slide in and out. See that? Okay. So just close them all the way. Sure, we got lots of lube on here and on the top of this piece of hardware, what's going to come in contact with the top of the brake here. Just don't want to have too much where it spills onto the braking surface. Clean my fingers before I put this together. Okay, take our coat hanger out. Get our screws ready. Always thread things in by hand. Make sure there's no binding. I like to put the screws in as far as I can by just my fingers to make sure there's no damage to the threads. And then get my 12mm socket. And we're going to tighten this. Now, this is the part where you might need a 17, you might not, just to hold the other side while you tighten it. Work the two wrenches against each other. Okay. Do the bottom. That's tight. And now the bolt for our brake line. It's also a 12, but we need an extension to reach it. It is hot in here. Move you guys over to the other side. Brake is complete, ready for the wheel to go on. And it's natural to have a little, because these get knocked back as they touch the brake. They get knocked back because they are lubricated. I just pulled that one back with my fingers. See if I can pull, I can't really pull the inner one back. It's just barely touching. And they're floating, so on these pins will move. And as the piston pushes this pad, the other one is against these two pieces of the caliper, so it will compress. So that's why the inner pad tends to wear a little more than the outer pad, because the piston's on the inside. But then the piston gets released, and then any imperfections in the rotor, the pads will just kind of move freely. They just float until they're clamped by the piston. That's how the brakes work. So this is good to go. I have just tightened the lug nuts. I have not torqued them because the wheel's not on the ground. After I finish the brake on the passenger side, then we'll lower the car and we'll torque these to 100 foot-pounds. You can do 80 foot-pounds, 100 foot-pounds. I prefer 100 foot-pounds. No more than that, you'll break the studs off. So let's go to the other side. This is done on this side. See that? No dragging. This is good. Okay, here's a tip for you. If you have a front or a rear disc brake that won't come off your Honda or Acura, go to Home Depot or Lowe's, get yourself these metric bolts. It's M8 by 1.25. And the head, the socket will be a 13 millimeter. So there's two holes in the hat of the rotor, not the ones that have the little retaining screws, but there's two other threaded screws. And you just thread this in by hand a little bit, and then put your socket wrench on it and turn them like 2 or 3 turns on each one, going back and forth so you don't cock the rotor, and it'll back the rotor off. The day after I did my brake job, I had a little problem. I drove the car a little ways to heat up the brakes, burnish them in. Then I parked the car. And with this Z-clad coating that AutoZone puts on, one of the parking brakes was stuck on, and tried pushing the parking brake on and off. Wouldn't release. Actually left a black tire mark going down my driveway trying to get it to release. So I jacked up the car, took the brakes off, had to use these to get one of them off because the brake shoes of the parking brake were adhered to that black Z-clad crap. So I took off both rear brake rotors and got a piece of sandpaper, almost any kind will do. This is 100 grit, and I just took this and rubbed it inside where the parking brake shoes go, and got all that black crap off of the braking surface, and then sanded the brakes a little bit to the shoes a little bit to get the black stuff off. There's just a tiny bit, but I was amazed. It was just stuck on there like it had baked on there, because when you're driving, the parking brake is not doing anything. It's just, there's no friction there, so it didn't tear off all the black stuff. But when I parked and put the parking brake on, overnight it adhered to it. And one brake released, the other one didn't. Not too big of a deal. Took about 45 minutes to take both brakes off, sand them to get the black stuff off the parking brake surface, and put them back together. But nothing wrong with the job I did. It's that Z-clad crap. I'm not sure I'll buy these brakes again, these discs with the Z-clad coating, at least not for the back because of the parking brake situation. So you got two choices. You either sand it off or get the cheaper rotors with no coating and then paint the hat yourself so it doesn't get all rusty. I'm not sure which way I'm going to go next time. I really don't like painting, but also I wish I had done this when I put them on so I didn't have to spend another hour sanding the crap off. So just a free tip for you.